The email arrived at 4:17 p.m. on a Friday, which is the corporate coward's favorite time slot. It allows the sender to scurry out to their Tesla and hit the 101 freeway before the recipient has time to process the rage. Subject: Compensation Review Q3 Adjustment. I didn't open it immediately. I let it sit there, bold and unread, pulsing like a migraine in the center of my Outlook monitor. I took a sip of my lukewarm green tea. I looked around the open plan office of StratoStream, a mid-sized software-as-a-service company in Silicon Valley that smelled perpetually of roasted coffee beans and desperation. To my left, the sales team was playing ping pong. To my right, the marketing interns were filming a video. I am Arthur Brooks. I am 58 years old. I am the Senior Contracts and Intellectual Property Analyst. That means I'm the person who reads the 400-page documents that the executives in sales sign without looking. I'm the one who makes sure we don't accidentally sell the rights to our source code. I am the invisible guardrail on a highway full of drunk drivers. I clicked the email. Hi, Arthur. Thanks for your patience regarding the compensation adjustment request. We've reviewed your performance metrics, which remain stellar. However, due to current reallocation of Q3 liquidity into strategic acquisition channels, your raise got lost in legal. We simply don't have the approval code to push it through this cycle. Let's revisit next quarter. Best Logan Mercer, HR business partner, lost in legal. I stared at the phrase. It was a lie so lazy it was almost insulting. I am legal, or at least I am the backbone of it. The general counsel, Harvey Jenkins, spent most of his time golfing and wouldn't know a budget approval code if it bit him. This was the third year my raise was denied under a lazy excuse. Meanwhile, Logan had approved a $15 zeros in retention bonus for a junior developer who broke the build server twice. I didn't scream. I just felt a cold switch flip in my brain. They assumed that because I was quiet, I had no leverage. They were wrong. I looked at the sales team again. They were celebrating the Apex account. It was the crown jewel, an $80 million joint venture with Apex Defense Systems, a massive defense logistics firm. It was the deal that was going to make StratoStream a unicorn and paid for the CEO's new glass-walled office. It was also a deal that I had written. I wrote the contract, the master service agreement, the intellectual property indemnity schedule, and the 60-page addendum on royalty structures. I remembered that addendum vividly. I wrote it 3 years ago late at night when the company was desperate and cash poor. We needed Apex to sign, but we couldn't offer them the upfront equity they wanted. So, I had crafted a performance-based royalty trigger. It was complex, buried in legalese. I walked to the secure file room, opened the fireproof safe, and pulled out the Apex licensing agreement binder. I turned to page 42, clause 14cc, in the event that the licensor StratoStream achieves 3 consecutive quarters of 99.99% uptime while processing in excess of 5 terabytes of client data, the licensor acknowledges that intellectual property rights for the core algorithm shall shift to a shared royalty model, entitling the original intellectual property architect to a retroactive commission of 0.5% of gross contract value unless a waiver is signed by said architect. I checked the signature page. Signed by the CEO of Apex, signed by our CEO, Preston Caldwell, and on the bottom line, intellectual property architect, signed Arthur Brooks. I closed the binder. The silence in the file room was full of potential energy. Lost in legal, I whispered. My raise wasn't lost. It was right here, hiding in plain sight, compounding interest for 3 years. I wasn't going to reply to Logan Mercer. I was going to teach them a lesson about the importance of reading the fine print. Over the weekend in my home office, I logged into the admin dashboard. Since the chief technology officer gave me root access years ago, I pulled the uptime reports. Q1 2023, 99.992% uptime. Q2 2023, 99.995% uptime. Q3 2023, 99.998% uptime. There it was, the first milestone. 3 consecutive quarters of near perfection. Next, the data volume. Client data processed was 12 terabytes, 15 terabytes, 22 terabytes, way over the 5 terabytes threshold. The math was simple. 0.5% of the $80 million contract meant $400. 0Z plus retroactive penalties and interest. The current executive team had never read the legacy agreements. They were oblivious. I printed every log and report. Sunday night, I thought about Logan Mercer in HR. He tried to save the company $10,000 a year by denying my raise, forcing me to audit my own worth. I called Oliver Marshall, General Counsel for Apex Defense Systems. He answered on the second ring. Arthur, Sunday night, either the servers are down or you're quitting. Neither, Oliver, I said. I'm doing some housekeeping. I was reviewing the master service agreement we executed 3 years ago. Specifically the royalty addendum. Clause 14C? He asked. He knew. Of course he knew. He was a good lawyer. If we defaulted on paying the intellectual property architect, which was me, it put StratoStream in breach of vendor compliance standards. It seems my company has overlooked the notification requirements. The milestones were met 18 months ago, and they haven't paid you, Oliver asked. Not a dime, I replied. In fact, they just denied my cost of living adjustment. Oliver laughed. Arthur, that is extremely negligent. If they are in breach of the payment terms to the intellectual property architect, that compromises the indemnity shield for the entire software suite. Technically, StratoStream is operating our systems without a valid license. Technically, I agreed. I thought you might want to know before I file anything. I appreciate the heads up, Oliver said. Lunch tomorrow, the place on 3rd. See you at noon. I hung up. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was a liability, and come Monday, I was going to be the most expensive problem they had ever ignored. The restaurant was dark and expensive. Oliver Marshall was already there. He nodded at the empty chair when I arrived. Arthur, you look like someone who knows where the bodies are buried. I dug the graves, Oliver. Of course, I know where they are. I sat down and placed my napkin on my lap. Sparkling water, please. I told the waiter, who materialized out of the gloom. Oliver cut to the chase before the water even arrived. I had my team review the contract this morning. You're right. Clause 14C is ironclad. It's actually brilliant. Who let you put that in there? The old CEO was desperate to close the deal and told me to add safeguards. He didn't realize it protected the intellectual property creator from the company. Oliver smirked. And the current regime, Harvey Jenkins, the golf pro masquerading as a general counsel. Harvey thinks force majeure is a French dessert. Oliver tapped the table. Here is the situation. Apex pays StratoStream $20 million a year. If StratoStream is in breach of its compensation protocols, that creates a liability chain for us. If you sue, you could freeze the code. I could, I said softly, but I don't want to hurt the product. I built the product structure. I just want what the contract says is mine. And you want them to bleed a little, Oliver added. I took a sip of the sparkling water. I want them to understand that lost in legal is not a valid accounting strategy. Oliver pulled a folder from his briefcase. Apex takes compliance seriously. If a key vendor fails to compensate its primary intellectual property architect, we must demand an audit of all disbursements to ensure our software use is free of encumbrances. I opened the folder. It was a draft letter addressed to the CEO of StratoStream. Subject: Urgent audit of intellectual property compliance and royalties. It demanded proof that Clause 14C had been satisfied. It cited the exact milestones I had printed out. It requested a response within 48 hours. If you send this, I said, looking up, Harvey Jenkins will panic. The CEO will scream. Good, Oliver said. They've been overcharging us for support hours for 6 months. I've been looking for a reason to squeeze them. You just handed me a vice grip. He leaned in. You realize, Arthur, that once I send this, there is no going back. They will hunt for the leak. They will know it's you. They won't know, I corrected him. They'll suspect, but they can't prove I spoke to you. And even if they do, retaliation against an employee for asserting contractual rights regarding their own compensation in California is highly illegal. Treble damages, Oliver whispered, savoring the legal term. Exactly. Do it, I said. Oliver signaled for the check. I'll send it tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I suggest you be in the office. The fireworks should be spectacular. We didn't shake hands. We didn't need to. We were two professionals who understood the mechanics of the corporate machine. I walked out of the restaurant into the blinding California sun. I went back to the office for the afternoon. I sat at my desk. I answered emails. I helped a junior associate fix a formatting error in a non-disclosure agreement. I was helpful. I was pleasant. I watched Logan Mercer from HR walk past my desk. He was holding a green smoothie and wearing noise-canceling headphones. He didn't even look at me. Enjoy the smoothie, Logan, I thought. Might be the last thing you digest comfortably for a while. Tuesday morning, the email hit sent to Preston Caldwell, Bradley Fox, and Harvey Jenkins. I saw the high-importance message from Apex Defense Systems enter the server at 9:15 a.m. I saw Preston Caldwell forward it to Harvey Jenkins. Subject: Forward, urgent audit. Harvey, handle this. Probably just standard compliance spam. Don't let them slow down the Q4 pipeline. At 9:30 a.m., I saw Harvey Jenkins forward it to the VP of Finance, Bradley Fox. Subject: Forward, urgent audit, Bradley. They're asking about royalty structures. Do we have any of those? Just send them some generic financials. At 9:45 a.m., the email landed in my inbox from Harvey Jenkins, General Counsel, to Arthur Brooks. Subject: Apex whining again. Arthur: Apex sent some formal nonsense about an intellectual property audit and Clause 14C. Sounds like legacy contract gibberish. Can you draft a standard we are in full compliance response? Don't spend too much time on it. I need you to focus on the merger due diligence. Thanks, Harvey. They hadn't even read it. They blindly forwarded the email to the one person who knew exactly what Clause 14C was, asking the arsonist to investigate the smell of smoke. I opened the email. I hit reply. Hi, Harvey. I'll log this in the compliance tracker. I need to pull the original files to verify the specific language of Clause 14C. It might take a few days to cross-reference with the performance logs. I'll keep you posted. Best, Arthur, sure thing. Take your time, Harvey replied instantly. Take my time. I wasn't going to take my time. I was going to let the clock run out. The Apex letter demanded a response within 48 hours. That meant Thursday morning. If we missed the deadline, Apex reserved the right to suspend payments pending investigation. I created a new digital folder on my encrypted drive. I named it Contingency Escalation. Into this folder, I dragged the original email from HR denying my raise, the email from Harvey asking me to handle the audit regarding my own unpaid royalties, and a PDF export of the chat conversation where Bradley Fox, CFO, joked about hiding profits to avoid paying out bonuses last year. I archived everything. Never annoy the person who manages the data retention policy. Wednesday passed quickly. Preston Caldwell presented a slide deck about our record-breaking uptime, bragging to the board. I thought about how they were stealing from the architect of that performance. I looked at Harvey Jenkins during the meeting. He was scrolling through golf resort reviews on his phone. He had completely forgotten about the Apex email. To him, it was just another task he had delegated to the help. For years, I had resented being invisible. The guy in the gray cardigan who fixed the formatting while the executives in vests took the credit. But now, invisibility was a superpower. I was walking through walls, planting dynamite, and they were handing me the matches. Thursday arrived. The 48-hour deadline was approaching. I didn't send the response. I didn't draft the "We are in compliance" letter. Instead, I updated the ticket in our internal system. Status pending legal review, awaiting executive sign-off. Technically, I was waiting. I was waiting for them to do their jobs. They didn't. At 5 p.m. on Thursday, the deadline passed. At 5:01 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Oliver Marshall, radio silence. Bold move, I replied. They think it's spam. They delegated it to me. I'm reviewing, Oliver replied with a single emoji, popcorn. The trap was set. Friday morning, the audit committee met in the conference room. Bradley Fox, the CFO, stood at the head of the table. Okay, team, Bradley said, clapping his hands. Apex payments are looking weird this month. Accounts receivable says the wire is pending. Anyone know why? My heart did a slow, heavy thud. Apex had frozen the payment. Oliver moved fast, probably just a bank holiday in wherever they bank, Harvey Jenkins said, spinning a pen. I'll ping them. Do that, Bradley said. We need that cash flow for the Q4 offsite in Tahoe. Then a voice spoke up from the end of the table. Actually, it was Toby Grant. Toby Grant, the junior analyst, spoke up. I saw a flag on the contingent liabilities tab yesterday. It is accruing at 0.5% of gross for royalty class B. The room went quiet. Bradley Fox frowned. Royalty? We don't pay royalties. We're a software-as-a-service platform. It's in the legacy codebase, Toby persisted. Clause 14C. It says it triggers upon uptime milestones. The system automatically flagged it as a liability because our uptime is so high. Bradley Fox looked at Harvey Jenkins. Harvey, what the hell is Toby talking about? Harvey looked blank. I don't know. Probably some old boilerplate the previous lawyers left in. Ignore it. I can't just ignore a flagged liability, Harvey, Toby said, his voice shaking slightly. If the auditors see this, Toby, Bradley Fox snapped, we are not paying royalties. Delete the flag, reclassify it as a system error. I watched Toby. He looked uncomfortable. He looked at his screen, then locked eyes with me. He knew I handled contracts. I held his gaze. I didn't shake my head. I didn't nod. I just stared at him with a neutral, intense expression that said, "Don't be a hero, kid." Toby hesitated, but Bradley barked, "Delete the flag, Toby. Reclassify it and let's move on." Toby slumped. Okay, classifying as system error. He typed the command, and the red flag on the screen disappeared. They had just committed financial fraud, willful suppression of a known liability in front of witnesses. I quietly opened my notebook and wrote down the time, 10:14 a.m. Bradley Fox orders deletion of Clause 14C liability flag. Toby complies under duress, Arthur. Bradley turned to me suddenly. You track the intellectual property stuff. We don't owe anyone royalties, right? The contract language is very specific, Bradley. I said, my voice steady. Clause 14C exists. It was signed by the previous executive team. Whether or not you choose to acknowledge the liability is an accounting decision, not a contractual one. See, Bradley said, turning back to the room. It's legacy junk, an accounting decision, and I've decided it's zero. Moving on, he heard what he wanted to hear. He heard you can decide. He didn't hear you are breaking the law. After the meeting, I received a chat message from Toby. Hey, Arthur, that clause, it had your initials on the draft log. You wrote it, didn't you? Arthur, Toby, if I were you, I would send an email to Bradley confirming his instruction to delete that flag. BCC your personal email just for your records. Toby, is it that bad? Arthur, do it now. 10 minutes later, I got a BCC on an email from Toby to Bradley Fox confirming the instruction. Smart kid. He just bought himself a life raft. As for Bradley Fox and Harvey Jenkins, they had just drilled a hole in the hull of the Titanic to let the water out. The weekend felt like holding your breath underwater. Apex had frozen the payment on Friday afternoon. Usually, this would trigger alarms, but Bradley Fox had left early for Napa. The accounts receivable team saw the error, emailed Bradley, got his out-of-office auto-reply, and decided it was a problem for Monday. A perfect storm. On Saturday, I met my attorney, Eleanor Sharp, laying out the safe binder, the emails, the denied raise, and my notes of the finance meeting fraud. Eleanor Sharp read through everything, her face unmoving. Finally, she looked up. They are incredibly stupid, she said. They're arrogant, I corrected. They think rules are for other people. Well, Eleanor Sharp smiled. Rules are about to become very expensive. Here is the strategy. Apex sues for breach. StratoStream will panic. They will try to fire you for negligence and not warning them. That's when we drop the whistleblower suit. Retaliation, wage theft, and since they ordered the deletion of the financial flag, federal reporting violations. I don't want to destroy the company, Eleanor, I said. I just want my royalties, and I want them to admit they were wrong. Arthur, she said gently, you don't get one without the other. You have to cut it out. She drafted a letter of representation. Do not send this yet, Eleanor instructed. Wait until Apex drops the hammer. Then 10 minutes later, you send this to HR. It freezes them. They can't fire you while you have an active legal claim regarding the very issue they are being sued over. Makes you untouchable. I went home. Sunday night, I thought about the last 5 years of late nights and weekends worked for free. I had given them everything, and they denied a simple raise. Your raise got lost in legal, I whispered to the dark. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about dignity. Tomorrow they were going to look at me and see their downfall. I opened my planner to Monday's date. I wrote a single word, subpoena. I laid out my outfit, a sharp black suit. A funeral for your career suit. Sleep tight, boys, I said. Winter is coming. Monday, 8:45 a.m., the all-hands meeting. This was a monthly ritual where Preston Caldwell stood on a stage in the break room and told us how we were changing the world. The room was packed. People were holding coffees, looking tired. Preston was up there wearing a t-shirt that said disrupt under a $2,000 blazer. This quarter is looking incredible, Preston shouted into the microphone. Apex is expanding. We are looking at a 20% growth trajectory. I stood in the back. Leaning against the wall near the exit, I checked my watch. 8:52 a.m. The double doors at the back of the room opened. It wasn't a late employee. 2 men in dark suits walked in. They weren't wearing tech casual. They were wearing federal court formal. Behind them walked Oliver Marshall. The room quieted down. Ripples of confusion spread from the back to the front. Preston stopped talking mid-sentence. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Preston asked, squinting against the stage lights. Oliver Marshall walked straight to the stage. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked at Preston. "Preston Caldwell?" Oliver asked. His voice didn't need a microphone. It carried. "Yeah. Who are you?" One of the men in suits stepped forward and handed Preston a thick stack of papers bound with a heavy clip. "You are being served," the man said. "Civil lawsuit for breach of contract, intellectual property infringement, and willful noncompliance. Plaintiff, Apex Defense Systems." The room went dead silent. You could hear the espresso machine hissing in the distance. "What is this?" Preston laughed nervously. "Is this a prank, Bradley? Harvey?" Harvey Jenkins pushed his way to the front. "Oliver, what the hell is this? We have a meeting scheduled for." "We had a deadline." Oliver cut him off. "It expired Thursday. You failed to respond to a formal notice of audit. Per Clause 14C in Section 9 of the Master Service Agreement, Apex is immediately terminating the service agreement for cause and seeking damages for unauthorized use of unlicensed intellectual property." "Terminating?" Preston's face went the color of Elmer's glue. "You can't terminate. That's an $80 million contract." "It was an $80 million contract," Oliver corrected. "Now it is a lawsuit for $120 million, including treble damages for the fraud detected during our preliminary review." "Fraud?" Bradley Fox squeaked from the side of the stage. "We have reason to believe you suppressed known liabilities regarding the intellectual property, architect's royalties." Oliver said, his eyes scanning the room. "He found me. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I just adjusted my glasses." Oliver looked back at Preston. "Your license to use the software is revoked effective immediately, unless of course you can prove you have settled the outstanding debts to the intellectual property owner." Preston looked at the papers in his hand. He flipped them open. "Intellectual property owner? We own the intellectual property. Read page 42, Preston," Oliver said coldly. "Clause 14C. You don't own it until you pay the royalty, and you haven't paid." Harvey Jenkins grabbed the papers from Preston. He scanned the page. I saw the moment it hit him. I saw his hands start to shake. The paper rattled audibly. "The raise," Harvey whispered. "The cost of living adjustment." He looked up. He looked at the back of the room. He looked at me. Every head in the room turned. 200 people followed Harvey's gaze to where I was standing by the exit. I didn't shrink. I didn't look down. I walked forward. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. I walked right up to the stage. "Arthur," Preston asked, his voice trembling, "what is going on?" I said, my voice calm and clear, "that my raise just got found illegal." I pulled an envelope from my blazer pocket. "Eleanor Sharp's letter of representation and whistleblower protection." I handed it to Harvey. "I believe this belongs to you," I said. Then I turned to Oliver Marshall. "Shall we go to a conference room? It seems we have some negotiating to do." Oliver smiled, a shark smelling blood in the water. "After you, Mr. Brooks." We walked out of the break room together. Behind us, the silence shattered into absolute chaos. 10 minutes later, we were in the boardroom. On one side, me and Oliver. On the other side, Preston Caldwell, Bradley Fox, and Harvey Jenkins. In the middle, the thick stack of lawsuit papers and a very heavy silence. Preston looked like he was going to vomit. "Arthur, look, we can fix this. We can unlock that raise. Retroactive. 5%, 10%. I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. "Preston, we are way past 10%. We are talking about Clause 14C. Do you know what that is?" "It's some loophole you hid in the contract," Bradley Fox yelled. He was sweating. "It's sabotage. It's a standard protection clause," Oliver Marshall interjected smoothly. "One that your company signed, and your company triggered by hitting the milestones, and your company ignored when notified." "We didn't know," Harvey Jenkins pleaded. "Arthur didn't tell us. I sent you an email on Tuesday," I said quietly. Subject: Apex whining again. "You told me to handle it. You told me to prioritize the merger due diligence. You didn't read it, Harvey." Harvey opened his mouth, then closed it. He knew I had the email. He knew I had the logs. "Here is the reality," Oliver said, leaning forward. "Stratostream owes Mr. Brooks approximately $450,000 in back royalties plus interest. Furthermore, because you instructed your staff to delete the financial liability flag. Yes, we know about that. You are looking at personal liability for the officers involved." Bradley Fox went pale. Toby, he whispered. Toby is a good kid, I said. Leave him out of this. So, what do you want? Preston asked. He sounded defeated. You want the money? Fine, we will pay the $450,000. Just make the lawsuit go away. We can't lose Apex. It kills the company. It's not just the money, I said. It's the structure. You proved you can't be trusted with the intellectual property. You tried to defraud the creator of the system. I slid a piece of paper across the table. It was a term sheet I had drafted with Eleanor Sharp over the weekend. 1. Immediate payment of all back royalties, $482,000 with interest. 2. A formal apology issued to the company for administrative errors regarding compensation. 3. Reinstatement of the royalty clause with a penalty multiplier for future delays. 4. My legal fees paid in full. Preston Caldwell looked at the paper. This is a lot of money, Arthur. It's cheaper than losing an $80 million client, Oliver Marshall pointed out. Apex will only agree to drop the breach of contract suit if Mr. Brooks signs a waiver stating he has been satisfied. If he doesn't sign, we walk today. Preston looked at Bradley Fox. Bradley looked at the floor. Harvey Jenkins was rubbing his temples like he was trying to push his brain back inside his skull. And one more thing, I added. They all looked up. I want a promotion, I said. Director of Strategic Compliance and IP Governance, reporting directly to the board, not to the legal department. I don't trust Harvey to read my emails anymore. Harvey flinched. I want full autonomy to audit all executive expenses for compliance with vendor contracts, I continued. Bradley Fox's eyes widened. He knew what was in those expense reports. The client dinners that were actually bachelor parties, the travel that was just personal trips. You can't do that, Bradley hissed. Then Oliver files the lawsuit, I said simply, and the discovery process will find all those receipts anyway. Your choice, Bradley. An internal audit by me or a federal audit by the court. The room was silent for a long minute. The air conditioner hummed. Preston Caldwell slumped in his chair. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in 5 years. He didn't see the quiet man in the cardigan anymore. He saw the person who held his life in his hands. Fine, Preston whispered. Done. We will sign. Excellent, Oliver Marshall said, clicking his pen. I have the settlement agreement right here. I watched them sign. Preston's hand was heavy. Bradley looked like he was signing his own death warrant. Harvey just looked tired. When they were done, I took the document. Thank you, I said. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some work to do. Apparently, there was a compliance issue that got lost in legal. I need to go fix it. The wire transfer hit my account on Wednesday. $482,340.12. I stared at the number on my banking app. It looked like a phone number. It looked like freedom. But the money was just the beginning. The real payment was the shift in power. The following week, the changes started. Preston Caldwell announced he was stepping back from day-to-day operations to focus on visionary strategy. Translation. The board heard about the near miss with Apex and put him in a timeout. Bradley Fox, the CFO, decided to pursue other opportunities. He was escorted out of the building on a Tuesday. I watched from my office window as he carried a box of personal items to his car. He didn't look back. Rumor was that my first audit of his expenses turned up some very interesting invoices for consulting fees paid to his brother-in-law. Harvey Jenkins remained, but he was a ghost. He sat in his office, door closed, actually reading contracts now. Every time he saw me in the hallway, he nodded respectfully and scurried away. As for me, I got the corner office, the one with the view of the bay. I replaced the Hustle Harder neon sign with a nice, tasteful abstract painting. My title is now Director of Strategic Compliance and IP Governance. I hired Toby Grant. He is my senior analyst now. We have a strict policy. We read everything, we flag everything, and we never, ever ignore a red cell in the spreadsheet. The culture of the office changed too. The ping-pong table was moved to the basement. The sales team learned to knock before entering my office. They learned that Arthur needs to sign off on this meant you better have your paperwork in order, or God help you. Apex stayed. Oliver Marshall and I have lunch once a month. We don't talk about business much. We talk about wine and travel and the stupidity of people who think they can outsmart the fine print. One afternoon about 6 months later, I got an email from Logan Mercer in HR. Subject: Annual Review, Compensation Adjustment. Hi Arthur. Just wanted to let you know that your new compensation package has been fully processed and approved by the board. No issues this time. Best, Logan. I smiled. I took a sip of my tea, the expensive kind imported from Japan, which I now expense to the company. I hit reply. Thanks, Logan. Make sure you file it correctly this time. We wouldn't want it to get lost in legal again. I closed my laptop. The sun was setting over Silicon Valley, casting long shadows across the glass buildings. They say the devil is in the details. They are wrong. The devil is in the person who reads the details, and he just got a raise.